finding out that the third largest component of human milk is actually indigestible by the baby, and that third largest component are HMO sugars that are meant to feed the baby's microbes. I think just kind of getting that and appreciating that and sharing that with parents, I think that's one of the strongest reasons for parents to breastfeed.
Hi, my name is Augustine Colebrook, and I'm the principal at Midwifery Wisdom Collective. I speak on this podcast about big picture political issues and the future of our profession.
Hey y'all, I am Jamara, and I'm a midwife. I'm also a birth justice activist, and this season I am looking forward to sharing stories of Black midwives and the communities they serve.
Hello, beloved birth community. I'm Angela Love, nurse midwife since 2004, preceptor, and mother. I have a home birth practice called Midwife Love and a national telehealth practice called Midwife RX. My mission is to keep birth choices available and to educate the next generation of midwives for our daughters and grandchildren. Matriarchy now.
I'm Layla Wyatt. I get to share with you the voices of student midwives from across the country and beyond. This season, we focus on those students who just graduated, are about to sit for the NARM, or did yesterday, and we get tips and tricks for you for what happens at the end of the student midwife journey.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you, Toni?
Really good. How are you? It's been.
I'm
I
okay.
I feel as though I know you, as in you've been like in my sphere, in my world.
Ditto, my friend, ditto. And we've been talking about this since before I got sick last year. So I'm like overjoyed that this is happening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me. How are you health-wise? Are you all good?
It's miraculous. I'm recovering. I'm not 100%, and I probably have POTS syndrome forever, which is that really frustrating tachycardia thing. But I manage it okay. And my gosh, compared to last year, it's been exactly a year, and I'm seriously recovering. It's amazing.
You look fantastic, and
Thank you.
And your energy and everything is just brilliant. So it's brilliant to see.
Thanks, my friend. And you too. And I'm so excited to dive into this. So for those of you that are just tuning in, welcome to the Midwifery Wisdom podcast and YouTube channel. We publish both places. You can go watch us all those places. And of course, find us on the web, midwiferywisdom.com. And today we are with the amazing Toni Harman. And I know, right? Crowd go wild. Whoa, I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to pick your brain, hear about your new projects, all those things. But first, let's really introduce you. So you're a researcher, like a biologist, a filmmaker, like you have so many things behind your name. Will you give us a full intro? Who are you? What do you do?
Well, thank you firstly for having me on your show, and hello everybody who's listening or watching. Okay, so I'm Toni Harman. I'm a parent first and foremost, and I'm a filmmaker, and I've written created courses, written books, but actually my perspective, I'm not a biologist. I've just spent the last 10 years in the world of the microbiome and the microbiology, but I'm not a scientist. So
I think you are now. I mean, can't we give you an honorary degree? I mean, you deserve one, seriously.
But I think I've discovered my superpower. My superpower is to take really complex science and to put it in a way that people understand it. And I realized that we've interviewed, I don't know, maybe about 100 different scientists over the last 10 years, and brilliant. So I have absorbed their wisdom, and but it's not my science. They're the scientists. They're the smart people. But whenever I interview anybody, I'd say to them, okay, you got to make this really, really easy, because I've got to understand it, and I'm not a scientist. So if I can understand it, then I can share your knowledge with other people. Because what's sad is that, not sad, but it's just so the scientists are absolutely brilliant, and they're doing this amazing search on these really kind of fantastic elements of birth and breastfeeding and pregnancy, and they publish in these journals, and their papers are so difficult to read, so difficult to access. Some of them are in journals that you can't even get access to unless you're at university. So it's
all
in
the
this
paywalls and everything, they like prevent you. Yeah.
and it's just really frustrating. And that's how the academic world works, and it's brilliant and it's fantastic and it's wonderful that they're doing the science. So I applaud all scientists doing the science, but there's a massive gap between health professionals, first of all, so health professionals who can access and understand these papers, and then for the not just that, but somehow they've got to take this knowledge and bring it to parents. And I think there's just this massive gap between these kind of the insular walls of academia, and then you've got the kind of the knowledge contained within health professionals, and then parents are like me, and my perspective is as a parent, you can't, it's just crazy that there's walls between you and knowing really important stuff that can change your health and your baby's health.
Gosh, no doubt. Well, so some people may have heard of you and not even know it. So can we go to some of the things you've produced so that people can connect the dots?
Okay, so I was talking about this the other day. So when I say me, it's me and my partner, Alex. So if you imagine someone sitting next to me, that's Alex, and we've been together. We met at film school 28 years ago. So we've been together kind of for a long time.
Wow.
So we started our journey. So you might have seen our horror film. Don't watch it. That was
That's fantastic. I love that was your start. That just tickled me so much. Oh my gosh.
So we made a psychological horror that got picked up by Lionsgate. So it's out there in the world. I'm not even going to name it, but if you find it.
That's fantastic. Okay, great. We all have a shady past. Yours is just televised, right?
I know. And so it's out in the world. And so then we, after having a baby, we started sort of switch to making documentaries about childbirth. So we made a film called Doula. So if you've seen the film Doula, that's by me. And that was showcase the work of birth and postnatal doulas, and I wish I'd known about doulas before I had a baby, and they're just fantastic. I love doulas. And then I made a film about the politics of childbirth and human rights in childbirth called Freedom for Birth, and that was about the imprisoned midwife Agnes Garib in Hungary, and about how a mother that she supported during her birth, she took her country to the European Court of Human Rights and won this landmark case. So her name was Anna Tarnowski, and the ruling was the Tarnowski ruling, and that changed the kind of human rights in childbirth, and that was just fantastic. And we had people marching in the streets of Buenos Aires after screenings, and we got kind of all these emails saying this shouldn't happen. And I know some states in America where home birth midwifery is still illegal. So anyway, so you might have seen, so people might have seen Freedom for Birth. And then we kind of started looking into the science of birth. So we made a film called Microbirth, and which is all about the microscopic events happening during pregnancy, birth and breastfeeding. And from there, we've written books. There's 2 books. So Your Baby's Microbiome, which is the American version, and then The Microbiome Effect, which is the UK version. And then I've created a whole school, and with online courses, which is, well, if you know microbirth, you will know it as Microbirth School. If you've never heard of microbirth, then it's Microbiome Courses. So, and that's us really. And then right now, we're our next thing is to bring this information to parents.
That's so exciting. Our audience is predominantly midwives and birth workers. Certainly we have lots of parents tuning in too, but I'm wondering if you would, from the most simplistic terms for folks that this is new for, what is microbirth? What is the microbiome? What are we talking about here? Why is it so important?
Okay, great question. Okay, so if you're watching this as a video, you'll see me. You'll see Augustine. Okay, so you see me. I'm Toni, and I have trillions of human cells. Right? That's who we are. That's who we are as humans. But we also have trillions of microorganisms. So single cell microorganisms. So bacteria, viruses, protozoa, archaea, all in this kind of smorgasbord of microorganisms that live on and in us. So there are trillions of microorganisms that live on and in us. The collective word for that community is the microbiome, the human microbiome. So they're amazing, these little microbes. They are fantastic for your human health. So they're good for digestion, for your immune system. They have help you have anti-infective properties. They help with digestion, metabolism, all these amazing things of these microbes living on and in us, right? So you might have heard of gut health, and a whole load of these trillions of microbes live in the end of your gut, and they're the ones that help with digestion. So if your body is balanced, your microbiome is balanced, your body is thriving. Everything kind of works to capacity. If you have a dysbiotic, what the scientists would call a dysbiotic gut, where it's unbalanced, where things start kind of not working so well, and that leads to inflammation, and this is connected to all range of diseases, from asthma, atopic diseases, type 1 diabetes, kind of some gut. The scientists are thinking about there's a gut-brain connection. So how you feel and how you your whole workings of your brain, and that's connected to your gut. So there's complex layers to this, and the scientists are discovering more and more all the time. But it's really, once you get into it, it's amazing. It's like this onion starts to unpeel, and it's fantastic. But right, so this is the bit. So if you listen to nothing else, or listen to this, right? So the mother, so when you're pregnant, your microbiome of your vagina and your gut, that develops and prepares in preparation for birth and for breastfeeding. So a pregnant mother or an expectant parent, when she gives birth, their bacterial ecosystem is passed from mother to baby. And so everybody's microbiome is unique, and it's the mother's unique microbiome that's passed to her baby if you have a vaginal birth. So that's the seeding, that's the main seeding event for founding the infant microbiome. And then this bit blows my mind. So within breast milk are these special sugars, and they're called human milk oligosaccharides, and they're just wonderful. And everyone's got to make their own unique set of oligosaccharides, these special sugars in your breast milk. Everyone's got different sets. There's up to 200 being discovered, and everyone's got a whole unique set of combinations of these special sugars. So those special sugars, they're the food, not for the baby. No, they're not food for the baby. No, they're food for the microbes in the baby's gut that have been transferred from the mum. And so that's the kind of feed part. So you've got seed, the beneficial bacteria from the mum is past the baby. Then you've got the feed, which is these special sugars in human milk, which feed the beneficial microbes in the baby's gut. And they're the ones that you want to train the infant immune system. Set that up right at the beginning. That'll protect the baby for the baby's long-term health.
Wow, that's so incredible.
Yeah, but if there anything kind of interferes with that whole process, so things like C-section, antibiotics, or infant formula, then this can interfere with this process, and that could lead to potential maleducation of the infant immune system. And that's what scientists believe that could explain why, say, babies born by C-section are at increased risk of atopic disease, allergies, asthma, type 1 diabetes, even obesity. So all these conditions are being related to cesarean. So at the moment, it's just correlation, not causation. And causation might take another 100 years to prove. but it's that's all the science is leading in that direction.
Wow. Well, let's go into this, right? Because this is that really hotly politically challenged place of really uncovering this essentially this new correlation. It hasn't been fully fleshed out yet, but it's looking that way, because we all know that a certain small percentage of babies or moms would not make it without the emergency life-saving cesarean. So much the same way as how we talk about breastfeeding, it certainly is optimal. We certainly want it to happen, but there is, unfortunately, a small subset of folks who it's not going to work for. So in the same way for birth and for breastfeeding, you, myself, many others are challenged to find language that impresses upon the really profound benefits while not starting some kind of shame, blame, or like, pathway where there's only one way, right? So tell me, because you are starting to translate this to parents, since we're talking mostly to midwives in this group, what are some of the ways that they can talk about this seeding and feeding that's so profound, while at the same time leaving open the possibility that birth does unfold, that feeding does unfold in unique ways?
Great question, really great question. Okay, so there's always this idea of like parent guilt, or so you can't share this information with parents because you'll make some people feel bad. And I'm of the opinion, okay, so even if you and you're absolutely right, C-section, cesareans can be life-saving, and thank goodness we have them available, and obstetricians are highly skilled and amazing and life-saving, right? And if a baby needs to be born by C-section or has been given antibiotics, the one thing that can help restore the baby's microbiome is exclusive breastfeeding. Okay, so and that doesn't mean necessarily breastfeeding at the breast. It could be expressed milk that's given to the baby, the mother's own, biological mother's own milk given to a baby, ideally. So there's kind of breastfeeding, and then there's kind of expressed milk, the mother's breast milk. And then if that isn't available, then it's donor milk, but you kind of take some of the mother's expressed milk and mix it in to the donor milk so that it becomes more personalized to the mother. And then somewhere underneath that is infant formula. Okay, so there are things you can do if a baby needs to be born by C-section. It's just kind of if we can kind of get this message to parents that exclusive breastfeeding or exclusive breast milk, if at all possible, and whatever you need to make that happen, whether that's one-to-one support with lactation consultants or with midwives or with doulas. I think everybody should have one-to-one. I think anybody who gives birth should have somebody next to them who just sole job is to help them breastfeed. But anyway, back to this issue of making parents feel guilty. I am of the opinion that, okay, so I'm on this mission to share this information as wide as possible. And I think hopefully in the next year or two, all parents will hear this information, because it's so vital, and it can affect a child's life course, their health life course. But if parents, and the ideal time for parents to know this information is early in pregnancy, because then they can look to kind of optimize their gut microbiome and their vaginal microbiome during pregnancy in preparation for birth. So this information needs to come early, in my view, in pregnancy, so they can actually make changes to optimize their gut health. For example, eating their diet choices, lifestyle choices in terms of exercise, reducing stress, getting a dog. There's research on getting a dog, all those kind of things that should, gardening, houseplants, exposed to nature, all of those things are really good to optimize your microbiome. Okay, so if a parent is introduced to these concepts early, then they can do something about it. They can take on this information on board, and they can be empowered by this information. And it's really addictive, right? So once you learn the concepts of fermentation, home fermentation, or kind of what makes a kind of microbiome friendly meal, and what you can eat, and things like getting a dog and all those things, you start to see the world in a different way, and it's a really exciting world. Okay, so back to this parent guilt. So that's the ideal time. So you empower parents with this knowledge, and they can make plans or preferences for whatever they want to do during their pregnancy, whatever they want to do during their birth, and for breastfeeding, or however they want to feed their child. So once they've got this knowledge early, they kind of sinks in, mulls around, and then yes, you're going to take action. Right, okay. If this information is delivered by I'll say midwife, just because you kind of mentioned midwives and that most of your audience is midwives. If it comes like a day before, like right, the 40th week of pregnancy, and suddenly the midwife starts talking about microbes and talks about bacterial ecosystem, honestly, it's too much. It's kind of takes your brain in a whole other direction. And so if a mum at that point needs to go for a C-section, and they're trying to think about kind of microbes and what to do for their microbiome, it's too much. It's too much. I think it's too late really to give this information, other than breastfeeding. So it's the one thing you can do is to breastfeed or to support breastfeeding. So and if the mum learns about this information after the birth, then it's then they've kind of missed that opportunity. So
yeah, they might go down this like spiral of like, I should have, I could have, why didn't I, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not their fault, and this is kind of why I feel really passionate about it, because this information needs to go to every parent as early as possible. It should go to kids in school, to be frank.
Yeah.
And that this is a whole new way of thinking about yourself, not as just a single person, but you are a human superorganism. It's you and your microbes, and we've all got to start thinking of ourselves as a human superorganism, about putting microbiome first through when it comes to birth or for breastfeeding. So there are,
and the earlier the information, the better. Huh?
Exactly. So it is tricky to talk about, but it just needs to, and I don't think you can this is my own view, I don't think you can sugarcoat it. This is the way we have evolved as humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't sugarcoat it and say it's fine, doesn't really matter, it's just like bacteria. No, this is, if you don't have one of the professors we interviewed is Professor Rodney Deartit from Cornell University. So he describes it as because the immune system, the baby's immune system, is not developed when the babies are born, and there's a reason for that, because there'd be sort of conflict between mum and baby as the baby's developing if you've got this kind of a very active immune system. So the baby's born with a naive immune system. The immune system has to learn what is friend and what is foe, and that immune training comes from the bacteria, from the beneficial bacteria. And so Professor Rodney Deartit would say, if that baby is born without exposure to those microbes, that child is on a trajectory. So you are born on a trajectory towards increased risk of disease, unless you get these beneficial bacteria. And I think it's kind of, okay, we just need to know this. We need to spread awareness about this. Midwives need to learn this and need to know what they can do. And I know I'm going a bit of a rant, I'm sorry, but it's kind of, I think let's not tell women because it might make them feel guilty. No, we can't. No. There's no sugarcoating. You just got to get this information out there. And I think there's no point. So guilt is if you are informed of this information and make a choice. Well, that's fine, because you made a choice and you were empowered and informed about this information. Regret is something else. Regret is if you didn't know this information and then you hear it afterwards, and it's like, oh God, I wish I knew that earlier, right. Then I would have made different choices. So for me, it's all about informed choice. If you know this science and understand it, and can have it early, so you can make choices, then you can be empowered by this information. And it's exciting. It's fun. It's fun.
It is. It is exciting. Well, so one of the interesting reactions or choices that I hear some folks headed towards is vaginal seeding of cesarean babies. Will you speak to that?
Yes, I can. Okay, so vaginal seeding or swab seeding sometimes it's called microbirthing, because we featured the Dr. Dominguez Bello was in microbirth, so some people have called it microbirthing. So swab seeding is a subject of ongoing research, and it's still a subject of ongoing research, and the full research papers haven't been published yet, so this is still an ongoing thing. So Dr. Dominguez Bello had this idea that if a baby is born by C-section, they miss out on receiving the mother's vaginal microbes. And that's true. So if you think about a vaginal birth where the baby goes through the birth canal, as opposed to a C-section where the baby comes out through the sunroof, is
that's what I call it too. I always call it that too. I love that. Yeah.
So it's not going through the whole kind of vaginal birth canal, which means that the baby's missing out on those vaginal microbes. So Dr. Dominguez Bello thought, okay, what we can do is we can insert a sterile swab inside the mum's vagina an hour before surgery, and let it soak in, and then before the surgery take the sterile swab out, and then after the baby's born we'll wipe the baby's mouth, face and body with this swab, which has been kind of coated in the mum's vaginal bacteria. And that research she published with a pilot study and said yes, it could make a difference. It's so she has since published other papers saying yes, it could make a difference. However, so in New Zealand, I spoke to researchers from New Zealand who looked at that research and said, okay, what if you just put a pipette of, a syringe of bacteria in the baby's mouth? And does that make a difference? And in their research, they found that it didn't make a difference. So it's not conclusive, and there's more research needed. And I should say there are risks involved. If the mother is colonized by group B strep, then if the baby's born by C-section, the baby's less likely to be colonized by group B strep. But if the baby is born vaginally, if the baby is born by C-section and then is swab seeded with the vaginal microbes, so adding the microbes artificially to a C-section born baby, if that baby has group B strep or any other kind of if the mother has any other kind of pathogen inside her microbiome, then you'd be artificially giving that baby those kind of not artificial, but those strains of bacteria, and which could potentially be harmful to the baby. So and also it's a subject of ongoing research, so there's really strict protocols. So things like research has only been done on babies born by elective cesarean or cesarean by maternal request. They're low risk women. There's no emergency C-section women. They've all been screened for pathogens as well as group B strep. All the mothers in the research are under 35. All those kind of like clinical factors which they've excluded. But there is some other research coming out of Finland, which I love this, but this might be a little bit of a hard sell for mums. So this is where you take a bit of the mum's poo, put it in with some breast milk, and create a poo milkshake, and give
that's
that
a hard sell. That's a hard sell. But as I always say, I mean, like midwives will be like, yeah, that makes sense, because the vagina is like 3 millimeters from the anus, and a baby's face just goes right next to it, right? So like they get smeared with mom's poop. Like it's impossible to keep it away. So they do get it, and that might be where most of the beneficial bacteria is coming from, which is fascinating. Yeah.
In fact, it is where most of the beneficial bacteria are coming from. I mean, the way you would know this as a midwife, that as the baby comes out, they're facing the mum's bum. They get and they should get a good lick of the mum's bum. They should be, the bum and the whole area is going to be covered in feces, and the baby's going to get is going to suck up that feces,
Totally.
and that is brilliant. That is brilliant. I mean, I've filmed at births, and they've been like Poo City. It's been like
Poo City. That is the new name. It is Poo City. That is what it's called. Oh my God, I love this. Oh, you're so funny. I absolutely love this. Well, so I know that the research trials are like being very, very specific to have that scientific method. And we want them to do that. But lots of moms and midwives have heard of this. And so when a planned home birth becomes an emergency cesarean, or even like a non-emergency, but a necessary cesarean, I know of midwives and moms who are sticking, cotton gauze vaginally and then like pulling it out right before they go into surgery, giving it to their midwife or their husband, and then rubbing baby. Like, what do you think about these home techniques? Can you do any harm? Obviously, what you mentioned is if they have no screening or we don't know their status. What else?
That is it. That's the main risk factor, is that you'd be giving your baby bacteria that
was not optimal.
But it might not be optimal if you haven't been screened. I know that even if you're at home and you have a home birth, that baby would get those bacteria, but it's just a slightly different mindset if it's an emergency C-section and you are deliberately giving bacteria. I've also heard of terrifying stories where mums have kind of not quite got this information or not been supported in this information and had a swab in their vagina for a week beforehand. And that is like,
not the way it's supposed to be. That's not it. Well, so potentially attempt this at home, or do you say don't attempt this at home?
Look, I'm not one to give any advice. I'm just saying for parents to be informed about what the benefits could be and what the risks are, and I would want midwives to be informed, and I want parents to be informed and to read about it. I mean, it's not rocket science, this, but people have
it's actually the most basic of biology, really.
But it's also to look for those danger signs. I mean, things like sepsis or early onset group B strep, that can, if there is an infection, then that could be a serious infection, and babies are born and they're small and they're vulnerable and things happen quick. So it's kind of being aware of the
and
risk
especially GBS. GBS is a very virulent bacteria that is that definitely wins the race of colonizing the new land of baby if it gets there first, and that is very concerning. Well, so when we started, you said that one of the things that really interrupts this seeding and feeding is antibiotics. So can we pull this apart? Because in the United States, the protocol is universal screening, whereas many other countries, like where I'm working in India, it's actually only risk-based treatment. What's it like in UK? How do they treat GBS, or how do they test for GBS? Do they prophylactically treat everyone, or do they just specifically treat people? And then what do we say to moms if we say, the antibiotics potentially impacts this process, but it's necessary for you? Like, how do we process that?
This is another really hard one, right? Because some research says up to 45% of babies are exposed to antibiotics, and that could be because of group B strep. So mum tests positive for group B strep, or there are risks involved, and so early, if the waters go, and there's a fear of prolonged rupture of membranes. So all of that
I mean, women receive antibiotics in labor for testing positive at GBS anytime, for developing even a minor grade fever, for prolonged rupture of membranes, post cesarean, if they have any kind of hint of chorioamnionitis, that they're all getting antibiotics. So I think it's really possible that 40% or even more get antibiotics in labor. I think that's really possible.
And that's quite terrifying, because if you imagine I don't want to terrify anybody. So,
well, we're midwives. We're already really scared. So go ahead.
But if you imagine, so if they're broad spectrum antibiotics, that means they wipe out bacteria. So 95, 97, 99% bacteria. So that's not just the bad bacteria, not just the pathogens. That's the good bacteria as well. So you are wiping out those bacteria, and it takes a while for those bacteria, the beneficial bacteria, to recover. And also, what might cover are the antibiotic resistant bacteria might be the ones that recover and start colonizing the infant gut. So it is a real worry. I mean, again, the one way to restore it is by exclusive breastfeeding. There was a paper out last year, I think it was, and this is really could be a game changer, where they're starting to for the baby to be born, and then for the mum to be given antibiotics if it's a kind of a risk factor for her, and for say for after C-section. So the antibiotics after C-section, or if she has a mild fever after, during the birth. So the baby is born and the cord is cut first, and then antibiotics are given, and the baby is observed really carefully. And so this is only kind of early stage research at the moment, but I thought that was a really kind of a really good way to handle this.
Yeah,
so here in
one
the UK,
step.
So here in the UK, we have a risk-based approach to Group B strep. So there's no universal screening. There's only screening if a mum presents with a whole set of risk factors. But what's really interesting, I was presenting to a whole load of midwives this morning at university in the UK, and I was giving a presentation about the microbiome to these midwives, and they're master's level midwives. Super smart, super great. And they said in their local hospital, they had just introduced, so it's a risk-based approach, but they just started using something which measures the bacterial load towards sepsis. So the risk of sepsis for a newborn baby. So they're looking at that, and to see if a baby registers high on this risk factor for sepsis, then they're the ones that will be given antibiotics. So I just thought that was a really nice idea. So it's a risk-based system, so not all babies are given antibiotics, but and they monitor on this kind of this digital diagnostic to see which babies are at risk of sepsis, their bacterial colonization. So I don't know how it works exactly, but I thought that would be a really good thing.
That's fascinating. Do you know if it's a screen of mom or baby before or after birth?
It's the baby. So it's
they're screening baby after birth.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. The whole point of the risk or of the universal screening in the United States is to get the antibiotics on board before they're born, because the theory is that the GBS is so virulent. So that would be interesting. Well, so I want to switch a little bit now, and again, sort of talk to the audience that I mostly serve, which is midwives, and so let me just sort of paint a picture. Community-based birth, which is who most of our midwives are working in homes, in birth centers and clinics, right? It's very organic. It's very relaxed, right? We don't have big, standards of PPE and stuff usually, although the pandemic sort of changed everything, but it's generally pretty relaxed. In addition, most midwives are pretty big supporters of water birth, and water birth's really messy. If you've been to one, everybody gets wet, there's no way to avoid that. My boobs always take a swim in the water, reaching over the tub, and it's messy. So we're exchanging some of our human biome in those births. I mean, women are sweating and crying and puking and pooping, and midwives are like shoes off and hugging them. And it's like we make really good friends at births, and we're exchanging. And so, water birth is particularly hilarious. I mean, I don't know how many births I've been to with how many midwives where they dutifully put on their sterile gloves, put their hands in the water, and then come out and drain the water out of the glove. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's really, it doesn't work at all, really. There's no, The gloves are for the camera. That's it. They're not actually protecting anything. At least that's my opinion. I know you're laughing, right? Because it's comical. I know some midwives who buy the big, veterinary gloves and everything. There's still water in those gloves. Like we're mixing, right? So tell me about that. Like, what kind of obviously we're screening our clients for some of the Hep B, Hep C, HIV, those kinds of things. But we're not really talking about the subtle exchange of this human microbiome. And some midwives are becoming conscious of this and are saying, like, we really shouldn't touch newborn babies without gloves on because we're transferring our data and we should actually be a lot more careful. Will you weigh in on this? Because I think this is a place that the whole community-based midwifery world could use a little scientific update on and some strategies. So tell me your thoughts. Have you seen this kind of home birth reality I'm describing, or is this new to you?
No, I have seen. I've been to births. I've filmed births, and they are messy smorgasbord.
Yes. It's a poop city, right? It's poop city. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say your home. So having a baby at home is brilliant because the first exposures you want are your home exposures. So you want mum, dad, or partner to be there and to get the microbes of from the mum, dad, and within the home, because you want to sample those home bacteria. For the baby needs to sample those home bacteria, those home exposures, because the baby's immune system has to realize they are the beneficial ones that need to be tolerated. So you want your home environment with the people in your home, so not outsiders from your home. So it's mum, dad, siblings, dog, whatever is in your home, grandma, whoever's in your home normally, they're the ones that's the kind of the home microbiome, which is the primary ones that you want the immune system to identify. That's friend, not to attack this. Okay, anybody who comes into your home, so your doula, your midwife, your photographer, your, I don't know, the next door neighbor, the next door neighbor's dog, that's not your home. So they're bringing outside bacteria and other microbes with them, and which is fine. So if you've got I'll say a clean midwife who started off clean, at least at the beginning, coming in, and she doesn't have any particular kind of pathogens herself, and she's, obviously we're coming out of coronavirus, so doesn't have any of those kind of potential pathogens in her microbiome. So hugging, she's going to be giving her own microbiome to whoever she hugs. So and obviously, okay, so water birth is a whole different, I'm going to come back to water birth because that's a whole different kind of thing. But anybody who touches that baby is going to be passing their microbiome to that baby. So you want to reduce the number of people that touch their baby unless necessary, because the ones that you want to touch the baby are the ones from the home. So the mum, dad, sibling, Aunt Edith who's living upstairs, the dog, I don't know if you don't actually want the dog licking or hugging anyone, but
yeah.
But that's your home environment. That's who you want to touch your baby. Obviously, when a baby's born, needs to be checked, needs to be, if there's an emergency, this goes out the window anyway, because it's all about kind of like looking after the mum, looking after the baby. Absolutely. But where possible, and my bugbear at the moment is, I don't know what it's like in America, but here in the UK, the amount of perfume people are wearing seems to have gone like mad. I don't know what, maybe I'm particularly sensitive to smell at the moment, but
I'm incredibly sensible. I know what you feel like. I'm so sensitive to scent. I can't do it. I don't wear any, like maybe the slightest essential oil, but I don't wear any. But anyone that comes in with it, I'm like, you have to leave. I can't do it.
But if you imagine, if you imagine someone's scent, so I mean, so a scent, you sort of smell it, so it's kind of like the microbiome in a way. But you're taking that scent all around the house. And for a start, I think it might put off the baby's kind of cues, because the baby just is going to want to go to the mum's boob, hopefully, and breastfeed. And if you've got loads of scents going on, it's going to be
you can't even smell it. They can't identify with it. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
they would go, there's this American cleaner or whatever, Febreze, they call it nose blind. That I know it's horrible, toxic, really stuff, but that phrase nose blind, I think is exactly what all these heavy scents do, is they turn off this very important scent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of an offshoot, but it is this idea that actually, no, just keep it minimal unless you need to touch that baby. Just keep it with the kind of immediate family, and so the exposures are within the immediate, and you can hug. So the mum gets out of the birth pool or whatever, you still hug the mum as a midwife, but just don't hug the baby. Don't take the baby away. Don't give the baby to the doula or to the next door neighbor who comes around. And I'm all for. I mean, don't want to tell anyone what to do, but I'm all for protecting the birth space, as in not visitors, and just keep it really kind of minimal, and so that the exposures the baby's used to, and the baby's immune system is going to be working really, 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 really hard the first day. So if you compare that to a hospital birth, then all this goes out the window, really, because the hospital environment is so different from the home environment. You've got people walking into the rooms. One of the most amazing things about the microbiome is that everybody has a cloud. Everyone has a cloud of microbes that walks in them. If I walk into a room, my Toni cloud of unique microorganisms walk with me. So come around and they walk into the room with me, to the point where you leave a kind of an imprint of your microbes if you walk out of the room again. Now, if you think about all the people who needlessly walk in and out of hospital rooms, you've got your cleaners, your nurses, your doctors, your change of shifts, your midwives, your maternity support workers, you've got photographers. All of them have a cloud of microbes that come with them. All of them are, and plus the air of the hospital has more likely to have pathogens in, because it's kind of where sick people go. So just even the air. And another bugbear of mine is that why don't hospitals have windows that open? Just is sealed in. You're sealed in with these microbes that you can't even get fresh air to wash them out. Anyway,
wow.
So you've got all these pathogens in a room. You've got all these people walking in the room. You've got people touching the baby, taking the baby to be weighed, taking the baby somewhere else. Sometimes I don't even understand. I know we don't have this in the UK, but in America, where you have what are they called, where you take the baby out and lay them in kind of bassinets, like a nursery, and separate mum from baby. Well, that's just crazy.
It's crazy. And it's happening for just about 100% of women here in India, where I work. The cesarean rate is over 50%. Anyone who doesn't give birth by cesarean has an episiotomy. So 100% of women get cut. And basically every single baby goes to the NICU for a period of 3 hours of observation. It's really disturbing. What's happening here in India is really a human rights violation. It's crazy what happens. None of it's evidence-based. I mean, like if an ultrasound at 38 weeks finds a cord around the neck in the ultrasound, they automatically have a cesarean. If the water breaks and there's any meconium at all, they automatically have a cesarean. I mean, if they've ever had a cesarean, they have a cesarean. Like if they think the baby weighs over 7 pounds, they have a cesarean. Like it's ludicrous. Like the stories that I hear, there was a threatened earthquake. So everyone in the entire due month had a cesarean. I mean, it's like the list, the stories I hear are insane. We have a major, major problem. And of course, India's health statistics are not fantastic for diabetes, obesity, chronic illness. All these things are going up and up and up and up. It's quite shocking.
I am really shocked by what you say. Honestly, that is really, really shocking. And because that's the whole point, is that if you have an asthma, so one of the kind of, you're at higher, if you're born by C-section, you're at higher risk of asthma and atopic disease. Asthma has 36 comorbidities. So there's 36 other diseases you might get or you're at higher risk for because you have asthma. If you're obese, there's 46. comorbidities associated with obesity. So it's this trajectory of disease. Oh, that's really shocking.
Yep. It's a crisis level, and it doesn't seem to be changing at all. I'm here working with the 4th birth center in the entire country that's midwifery run. And, many of the government organizations won't acknowledge that we exist. They won't license, like we're licensed as a hospital because there's no birth center. There's only one nurse midwifery training program. There's no direct entry training program. They're like not moving towards the solutions that we see globally work. And they're just sort of implementing more and more interventions. And the biggest, scariest one for me, aside from the 50% cesarean rate, and it's even higher in the town I live in, is the separating moms and babies. And it's so aggressive, and all babies get separated.
I don't understand. See, this is kind of why I feel this
hard to
information
contend
is,
with.
well, yeah, and this information needs to get out to challenge those those hospitals and the policymakers, because that you can't. There's all the science is saying, kind of keeping mum and babies together. That helps to establish the baby's microbiome. That could make a massive difference. And all the things like just stabilizing the blood sugar, stabilizing the temperature, all the things that you know about.
Yeah. To midwives, we're kind of preaching to the choir, but to mainstream policy analysts, they really need this information. Hospital administrators need this information. All the decision makers. So how can people get access to your movies? Because they're so important.
I'm going to just say one more thing, because I didn't finish about what I was saying about water birth.
Please.
I'm just going to say, there's only been tiny little research. If anybody's listening and wants to do a PhD research project, do water birth and the microbiome, because there's only been a couple of really tiny little studies, and they're incomplete. Well, they're just saying maybe it doesn't really affect it much, but there hasn't been any real big studies that have looked at how water birth impacts the infant microbiome and how water birth could impact health trajectories. And I know the benefits of women giving birth in water or labouring in water, but it's just this idea that can it affect the impact? So I would think if the water pool has been sterilized with really aggressive like antimicrobial cleaners just beforehand, and then the bath is filled with like chloride water, and maybe it is, depending on the public health system, all of those things might have an effect on the infant microbiome. So
I think so too. I think so, definitely. Yeah, I think all of those things have an effect. Robin Lim, who practices in Indonesia, and you know Robin Lim she's oftentimes advocated for adding like upwards of 3 pounds of sea salt into water birth tubs. What do you think about sea salt?
Look, I don't know.
It's nature's antibiotic, like nothing really grows, or not very much grows in the salt water. So that's her idea for pathogens.
No, I think Robin Lim is fantastic, but if you're killing
me too.
you're killing beneficial bacteria at the same time. I don't know anybody has researched salt being added to water and then how that impacts the infant microbiome. There's this big. So it's a very common practice, water birth, particularly with like home births all around the world. But I think because scientists, so microbiologists are in their silos, all they see and what they are researching are hospital births. They're not really researching home births and the common birth practices that happen in home births. So I'd love anybody listening who wants to do a PhD, research this, because this is so needed for midwives all around the world and midwifery practice.
To make informed decisions, because right now we're just sort of guessing, right? It's empirical.
So yes, where people can find our stuff, go to microbiomecourses.com. You can take a free mini course which features 6 professors, and you can learn just the basics of the infant microbiome, and you've also got our courses. Or go to microbirth.com and watch our film, or You could just, you know what, just look up Toni Harman and you'll find me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're all over the internet. Well, Toni, it's been a tremendous pleasure. I wanted to end tonight with kind of a sum up question for you, directed to the midwives in private practice today. So, I work with midwives in Australia and the US and, India and Indonesia. Like I work a lot of places, and there's some pretty good knowledge of this. Your work has gone, wide and far, and people are like, I get it. Okay. What we're doing works, midwives in the home environment, supporting it. This works. We get it. But I feel like, you've been doing, more research. You've been working on new projects. There's new information coming out all the time. You have a tremendous blog on your website that continues to share really good information. What is like the one most important thing that you think midwives could or should be doing to help bring this knowledge into actionable steps for families?
Great question. I would say, breastfeed. So it's just finding out that the third largest component of human milk is actually indigestible by the baby, and that third largest component is our HMO sugars that are meant to feed the baby's microbes. I think just kind of getting that and appreciating that and sharing that with parents, I think that's one of the strongest reasons for parents to breastfeed. And I think it's midwives do support breastfeeding, are fantastic, and I think it's just kind of putting it into simple simple nuggets of information, like what sort of bullet points. So that is one bullet point, and just that mum's got a unique microbiome that she passes to a baby with vaginal birth, and those are fed by the sugars in breast milk. Keep it really, really simple and just tell as many people as you can.
Yeah. And I would take from that, just like one more action point, is that like a birthing person or a new parent struggling with breastfeeding in the first few weeks is a crisis. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, well, call your local lactation consultant, or maybe La Leche can help you. It's like, no, we need to get like serious about driving to their home on Sunday night and like helping them figure out how to breastfeed. Because if we lose them in that first week or that first month, like they don't come back to it. It's not like it can be solved later. So really focusing on early breastfeeding intervention and support could be life-changing for lots of moms and babies. Yeah. And
just that, the colostrum, just getting any colostrum into the baby. Just, even, and like you say, kind of driving in the middle of the night on a Sunday night, just to try to give support. I think what's missing, what's lacking around the world is just support for that kind of first hour, 2 hours. And I know midwives are very, very busy. You've got loads of stuff you need to do, but it's just like focusing, giving parents that space to establish breastfeeding, that can make the difference to lifelong health.
Truly lifelong health. Wow. Well, any last like tidbits? I know that you said like, you just had this fabulous quote that's sort of got out of my head, but these sort of like talking points for the parents. So one is like that crucial breastfeeding, because it makes the huge difference in the lifelong health. What are some other things that midwives can say, birth workers can say, doulas, childbirth educators could say, and the parents would go, light bulb, oh, aha, okay, this is really important?
Nutrition during pregnancy. I think I would love, because your gut microbes changes during pregnancy, and it's really important to be kind of in balance by the time you give birth. And the earlier you start, so starting even before conception, is just to start thinking about fermented foods, whole food, probably all stuff that most people know about, most midwives know about, whole foods, fruit and veg, a diverse rainbow of fruit and veg. Just trying to think that you are not, that's my kind of take home message. You are not a human. You are a human super organism. And we need to all start thinking like superhuman organisms, human super-organisms.
I love it. That's awesome. Toni, thank you so much. I hope to get you over to the US to speak at some point. And I just love what you're doing. I'm cheering for you. And thank you again. And we'll link all of your social media down below. Thank you. And have a fantastic day out there in UK.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for sharing this knowledge, and I wish you massive success and reach and impact, and together we can change the world.